Welcome to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast with your hosts Jim Quinn of OSGA.com and J.R. O'Donnell of Red Zone Sports. Let's get started.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Cast Your Bets. This is our 6th episode of the weekly podcast where we try to help you win a few bets, teach you a little bit about handicapping, and teach you a little bit about what sports books to play at. My name is Jim Quinn from OSGA, and I'm here with my good friend J.R. O'Donnell from Red Zone Sports. JRO, how you doing?
Doing well, my friend. Like we talk about all the time, best time of year, football, hockey, basketball. We're going to try to fatten the listeners up with two nice college and NFL winners this week. Had a nice winner in the college, and let's see if we can hang up two more W's for the listeners.
Yeah, that was a decent weekend last weekend. I didn't do quite as well as I would have liked to. I guess after those first 2 weeks where you were knocking them dead, and even I was able to manage to find a winner or two, I guess I got a little overconfident, thinking I could just throw darts and get winners, and that's certainly the way to lose money, not the way to win money.
Well, if you go into the season here a little bit, week 6, obviously, the lines are starting to get tighter. The sports books and the offshores, obviously, and the local guys are starting to get a little sharper here. The lines are tight. A lot of the teams are playing out here. If you do your research, you can put yourself on the right side. But believe me, now more than ever is when you do the research, because from week 6 to week 12 is a tough time to win in the NFL and college unless you do your homework.
Well, yeah, I see there's a couple of double-digit spreads on the board this week for the NFL, and even the college lines I noticed are getting a lot tighter. So you certainly got to put in the extra time. You were up at what, 3 a.m.?
3:09. That's my alarm goes off at 3 o'clock. 3:09 for the football season. I'm doing my homework, and obviously I can sleep after the Super Bowl.
There you go. That's kind of the way we look at it here at OSGA, too. We're working 7 days a week as well. I completely get where you're coming from. Although 3 a.m. is a tad bit early for us here at Offshore Gaming Association. JR, we had a couple of picks from you last week. A nice college winner, depending upon when people got that number. And the NFL game, unfortunately, didn't pan out, which was unbelievable. How'd you do over at Pregame? How'd you do for your clients overall?
I had a strong weekend for the pregame clients. I got the job done a little bit. Let's put it this way. Got the job done a lot here with the Fresno State. Kind of alluded to the fact that the line jumped to 17. I didn't like the fact that it went to 17. 16.5 was given out at game time. And they went up 17-0, 20-0, but they let the team back in. They let a San Jose Spartan team back in that just couldn't do anything. I was a little disappointed with Fresno State. Hey, they did cover the spread, but I expected them to smash a poor San Jose Spartans team. And jumping to the NFL, Dallas turned into a public play. We talk about it all the time. When the public lines up on one side, I like to get on the other side, but unfortunately, I gave out the Cowboys. I rode them strong. Rodgers did me in. He sunk me. He is a true champion there, one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not one of the best. Put him up there with Brady. But Rodgers and the Packers got me. I gave out the Cowboys, and, hey, I was on the wrong side.
I love that Cowboys game too. I thought that you had a nice play there. It was a great situational play, I thought, which is something that you've talked about in a couple of the early weeks of the podcast with situational handicapping. We talk about how the NFL is week to week, and I thought it was a terrific spot there. But Aaron Rodgers, he's having one of those magical seasons. It's tough to bet against him. I never used to like betting against Brett Favre, and I think that Aaron Rodgers is starting to fit into that same category for me.
You're absolutely correct. Even with the Packers decimated with injuries, banged up, offensive line, defensive line, Aaron Rodgers with the ball in his hand is magical. You don't want to bet against that guy. I could see this baby coming. The end of that game, Cowboys was banged up. Zach Lee was out. Their defense was gassed, and he just drove down the field. They gave him too much time, and you could you knew it was coming. There was no way that Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to punch it in the end zone. And believe me, I got to give him credit for that. With a banged-up team, he takes them to the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Packers would be a nice, safe play to get into the NFC Championship game. I think they've got a really good shot of getting there, especially with the magical season I think Rodgers is having.
Well, when they get healthy, you got to look out because obviously the lines makers and the bookmakers and everybody out there that has some information in reference to the season win totals have the Packers up there. They were an odds-on favor for the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. They obviously knew more than me. I thought they were going the other direction, but hey, they were sharp and right on. And when they get healthy, look out. That's all I got to say. Look out.
Yeah, probably somebody to really look at, even betting as a relatively large favorite once you get to like a week 10, week 11, somewhere in there.
Absolutely.
JR, we're well aware you've got a nice little site over there at Pregame. They've got a nice page for you where you sell your picks, and you came out of the gate for us here on the show 6-0, and then you had that 0-2 week, went 1-1 last week, so you're 7-3 right now. But one of the problems that I see with guys buying picks, and since you're all in that end of the business where you're actually selling your plays over on Pregame, it bothers me that a guy will invest his money with you, stick with you, you win a bunch of games, and then you've said it before, you're only as good as your last pick, and these guys will jump off and go to the next Tom, Dick, and Harry, who maybe doesn't have the experience, maybe doesn't get up at 3:09 a.m. to be able to produce winners week in and week out. And I find it to be foolish. How does it work out on your end in terms of selling plays? I mean, am I hitting the nail on the head there? Do guys, jump off the ship as soon as you pick a loser?
You're absolutely correct. For as hot as you are and for as much research you do and for as many streaks as you have in reference to the NBA, the NFL, and the hockey, some guys, are crushing it in college football, but they're not too good in the NFL. Some guys are great in the NFL, and they don't necessarily crush in the other sports. But let me tell you, this is a fickle industry. The people out there are a get-rich-quick scheme overnight. These guys come in, and they love to play the hot handicapper. If you lose a game or two, they just turn the other way. In my business here for the last 22 years, I obviously keep a distance from everybody. I try to be aloof a little bit when it comes to the clients. I don't want to get too close because in this world, it is a fickle world. They jump all over the place for the hottest handicappers. Everybody on that internet has a big game. Everybody on that internet is trying to lure that people. It's when you're walking down in the middle of a fair, everybody's got that game that they want you to play. Well, if you are a successful handicapper and you have a clientele base that works, these guys know you're going to go hot and cold, and they flat bet like we talked about, and they stick with a guy regardless. They can weather the streaks of losing. They can weather those streaks of 0-4, 0-5. The guys that get burned are when they go to the hot capper and they lose those big plays, and they're just at loss for words. They can't understand how this guy lost after he hit 9, 10 in a row. Well, that's a quick way to lose money.
Yeah, and I also see, not just a guy jumping off, when you have a loss, but a guy like maybe you don't have the Notre Dame game, or maybe you don't have the particular team they're looking for, so they'll go over to another guy, and I just find that if you can find a handicapper that you can trust, if you're flat betting, I mean, here on the show you're 7-3. That's a profit of $370 if you're betting 110 to win 100. And that's still a damn good profit after 5 weeks. So, for me, it seems if I spend the time to find a guy I like, I follow that guy, I'm not going to get off him when he has a bad week or two. Maybe I don't buy 5 plays from you that week. Maybe I buy 2. Maybe I wait till you start getting hot again. But I can't see me going and just scrolling through the list at Pregame or scrolling through the list at Vegas Insider and just saying, oh, yeah, let me throw a dart and pick, Johnny Appleseed here to pick a game for me this week. I find it very frustrating, and I mean, I guess you find it frustrating, but you've also got to at some point say to yourself, what do I need to do to keep a guy around who wants to jump ship, where I have to tell him to just trust me for another week because I'm going to work my ass off this week to find another winner.
You make a lot of great points, and if I can give you a couple points there, what I do to try to keep these people around is a low-volume approach. Low-volume approach keeps everybody in the ball game if you go sour and also if you get red hot. And the other thing I want to make a real strong point is, people wake up in the morning loving the Notre Dame Fighting Irish or loving the Green Bay Packers. They will jump to a handicapper and find somebody that agrees with them so they can basically send it in two-fisted because they already love the game. They read your pick and analysis, and you're on the wrong side no matter how hot or cold you are. They won't play that game. They will jump all over the place to reinforce that the pick they like, and that's another disaster in the gambling world.
Yeah, betting on the TV game just because it's on TV. Betting on taking a handicapper just because he has that game. That's a big no-no. The other thing that I'm seeing a ton of is it feels to me anymore like everybody is a handicapper. I'm on Twitter all the time at Offshore Gaming, and I see hundreds of guys posting picks. I'm on about a billion email lists. It feels like I get picks from guys all day long. I have one set of picks I get. It's like a husband and wife handicapping team, which I really have no faith in. And that's just what it feels to me. I mean, you've been in this business so long. I would imagine when you started, you had a handful of guys, some respectable guys that are still around today. Am I right that it's just exploded where it feels like everybody's out there selling picks these days?
You're absolutely correct. It has exploded, but if I can make a real good point, everybody's a handicapper this week and this year and this month. But how about looking for that guy next year, next month? Because what happens is a lot of these guys are one-hit wonders. They come on the scene here. They might have a hot season. But what happens is longevity in this business is the key. Like I said, I'm not saying that I'm better or worse than anybody else, but I've been doing this 22 years, and I've been up there with some of the longevity guys. But basically, a lot of these guys, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of these guys are hot, and they come back as a handicapper under a different name. Same organization, same guy, same whatever. He's Johnny Appleseed this month, and all of a sudden he goes in the tank. Next thing you know, he's coming back. He's, Cold Blue Sports. Basically, I've seen it a million times, and this is what the people don't understand. Because if you go to a website or if you go to somebody and there's no records or there's no transparency, you obviously are going to, you're going to take a chance without any of these records. Anybody can tell you how good they're doing. I've been losing sleep. I've been getting killed, basically. My football season is one big grind for me. To hit 57, 58% is a killer job. I don't think these guys that print a business card and call themselves a handicapper are up at 309. I guarantee they're not doing that. And in order to even hit 58, 59%, you have to be up that early. That ain't happening. And those records, I can tell you, are stone cold incorrect.
Yeah, and it's really important to not only do your research when you're betting with a sports book, but do your research when you're finding a handicapper to buy some picks from. We get guys a lot of times who come over to the site and they'll ask us, how you are or how Mark is or how Ross is on the site. And what I try to tell them is at least they're giving you a consistent product every week. You're not going to find, 8 plays this week, including 2 minus 250 plays. You're going to find a consistent product, a consistent number of games, and you're going to see that there's research done behind those plays. And I think that's the most important thing that somebody needs to do when they're trying to find a handicapper is find a person who puts the record out there, who puts out a consistent product, and who you can tell didn't just throw a dart or just happen to pull up, the latest from Sports Radar and say, oh, they like this game, so I like it too.
You're absolutely correct. The other thing you need to realize is you can't be afraid to tell people you lost. You can't be afraid to tell them you were on the wrong side. I mean, obviously that one week I stepped in front of a couple good teams with a couple bad teams, and I told people I was wrong. Dead flat wrong. If you try to make excuses and injuries, for all those games that you shoulda, coulda won, there's a lot of games you're going to win the other way. Like, obviously, if you have the over and obviously it's going to go under or vice versa. What I'm trying to tell you is all these games that are bad beats, bad breaks, they all even out at the end. So don't try to give excuses about how this baby was guaranteed. You tell people how it is. You tell them the honest truth, and they respect you for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, sometimes I'll even tell my wife when I lose a game. I may even tell her that I lost a game. She always hears when I win. But, she hasn't. She thinks I win all the time. She thinks I only bet like one day a week. Well, JR, it's about that time of the program where we talk a little bit about some college football. For me, the college football season is starting to turn into what we talked about, I think, 2 weeks ago on the podcast, where we're starting to see that separation between the really good teams and the teams who are just going to tank the rest of the year. What are you looking at for college football for this week?
This week, I'm going to play on a team that's on a 4-game losing streak and almost in a must-win situation. Now, when the listeners listen to that, a lot of guys say must-win, absolute win. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play in a team that can run the ball. I'm going to play in a team that can lay the points here and play a little defense. And if you think back a couple weeks ago, the Air Force Falcons played Michigan. Nobody and their brother liked Air Force against Big Blue. They were getting 23-24. But that was the last game that Air Force has played well. They are on a 4-game losing streak. They are currently laying 7.5 to a terrible UNLV team. That's right, UNLV. And I'm going to look at the Air Force Falcons, who do a lot of things right, and one of the things they do right is they rush the ball. They are a great option team, and UNLV will not be able to stop the option from the Air Force Falcons. How about UNLV? 109th ranked UNLV rush defense, and they allow over 6 yards per carry. The Falcon option is going to run all over UNLV. I'm going to lay the 7.5. I can give you stats. I can give you trends. I can give you whatever you want. But I think Air Force on a 4-game skid is going to be focused. They're going to be well coached, and they are a better team than UNLV. We have a team on the upside, and we have a team on the downside. Stock up Air Force, stock down UNLV. Lay the 7.5. They are going to run the ball down their throat. I'm looking at Air Force to score a lot of points. They are going to take out a lot of hurt from those 4 losses that they were on that skid there, and I think UNLV is the wrong side. I'm going to lay the points with the Falcons.
Well, I like this play a lot. I mean, last week, Air Force had 621 total yards offense against Navy. They barely lost that game. It was a dogfight, that game. I've read some stuff that said it was one of the classic college football games of all time, which, is a little much. But it's still, you're talking, they ended up going right down to the wire and ended up losing that game. The quarterback kid for Air Force, this Arian Worthman, he is really on fire. He broke a record that's been standing since 1970 at Air Force for total yards. I think he's going to really light up a UNLV defense that has given up over 40 points so far 3 times this season. I love this play, man.
Yeah, you know what? You know what else I love about it? And people are going to say, JR, what in tarnation? You spend way too much time in the chemical room at the golf course. Air Force opened up as a 10-point favorite, and the public has bet it down to 7.5. There is no way that line movement is sharp. 10-point from Air Force down to 7.5, which means the public is on UNLV off that game last week where UNLV obviously had a cupcake schedule. UNLV beat a San Jose Spartans team 2 weeks ago, and UNLV is not the right side, but the public has bet it down. Air Force was a 10-point favorite. They're now 7.5. I love Air Force going against the world.
Yeah, and I've noticed that some of the offshore joints are starting to move that number a little tiny bit back up. I think they're getting a little scared to take so much action on UNLV. But it's a great play, man. We're gonna write that one down for the listeners out there. Take note of JRO taking Air Force minus 7.5 against a hapless UNLV team. I think this is another big fat winner for NCAA football, JR. Love this play.
Yeah, like I said, Air Force runs the ball well. UNLV cannot stop anybody. And let me tell you, the eye test and the litmus test on UNLV, they beat a couple bad teams. They are bad coached. They're in a bad division. They don't do a lot of things right. They turn the ball over, and they can't stop the run. That option that put up 600 yards against Navy, who is a good team. Navy is a good, well-coached team. When you play the academies, Navy's a good team. If they put up 600 yards against Navy, I can only tell you how much the sky's the limit against UNLV.
Don't hold back, man, on UNLV. I'm not sure if you like them or not.
Let me tell you, I'm fired up tonight. I felt bad about the listeners. I went 0-2. I put a lot of credence into this work. I want the people to get a nice product, and I'm telling you, I'm not giving you some free play where I didn't do the research. I like Air Force two-fisted, and I'm sending it home.
I love it, man. So we're going to fatten up with Air Force minus 7.5. Folks, we're going to listen to a short little announcement here, and we'll be right back.
The offshore betting industry is totally unregulated.
Where can you turn to make sure your money is safe offshore?
The Offshore Gaming Association, OSGA. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com or call them toll-free 7 days a week at 877-OSGA-BET. That's 877-674-2238. Established in 1998, the OSGA has been the ultimate watchdog for the unregulated offshore betting industry. They have helped thousands of players find secure, reputable offshore wagering outlets and perform dispute resolution for hundreds of wronged players. Visit the Offshore Gaming Association at www.osga.com or call them toll-free at 877-OSGA-BET.
Okay, guys out there, we are back with Cast Your Bets, episode number 6. Jim Quinn from OSGA with my good friend and professional handicapper, J.R. O'Donnell. He's got his picks over there at pregame.com. It's time in this segment here where we talk about a little about NFL football. I know you're going to give out a winner, but I think that one of the things we need to reinforce, I spoke about it earlier in regards to that Cowboys game, is it's a week-to-week league. There's an awful lot of teams that are hard to put your finger on. You bet on them one week or you look at them one week and they're terrible. The next week they're great. I'm having trouble myself saying, are the Vikings really bad? Are the Cardinals really that bad? Are the Cowboys for real, or what's their deal? And I look at this and I think we need to reinforce to the listeners how, here we are, week 6 NFL. Does that mean it's different than week 5? Yes, it does.
Absolutely. Unlike college, when the teams start to go in the tank and the teams start to come on high gear, the NFL, you need to have a terrible or a short memory, because the team that is just as bad that week before turns it around and you just can't even think they're the same people in the uniforms. Betting the NFL is a fickle sport. Betting the NFL is research, but you can't bet with your heart. You can't bet your favorite team. You need to obviously take some stats and trends out of the equation sometimes. You need to realize, are those 14 or 21 points where they scored on a short field? Was it a turnover? Did they fumble the ball away? Those are the things that people don't really look at. But in the NFL, the lines are getting tighter. This is a tough week in the NFL. I've been doing this for a long time. These lines are right on. There's some tough games this week. People more than ever now need to realize that they need to do the research and they need to have no memory when it comes to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, Pittsburgh losing last week, which was tough. They're going against Kansas City this week, who seems to be like unstoppable. So that's a game there that I'm going to avoid. You've got a double-digit spread on Atlanta and Miami. Yeah, maybe, but didn't Atlanta tank one game earlier this year too? So
Absolutely.
I think it's important that you have to really take a look at it every single week. So this week, you got another winner for us. I'm hoping you're not picking against Aaron Rodgers again this week. That's all I got to say.
No, I told you, like we talked off of the air, like we talked all the time, that gosh darn Aaron Rodgers got me again. Anybody in the world wouldn't have been able to brought it back against the Dallas Cowboys. But obviously, to allude to that a little bit, they gave him a minute. Cowboys were gassed. Their best linebacker was out, and you just saw this coming a mile away. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't even have to watch the end of the game. But anyway, this week, let's go NFL. For as much as I like that Air Force pick, I got a nice solid play here, and I'm going to look at a total this week. I did the research on this total. I think I got two teams that play some defense. I got stats, I got trends, and I got some research here. And I'm going to look at the Baltimore Ravens, Chicago Bears, under 39.5, under 40. Now, this game is going to be a low-scoring game here. Glennon, who plays for the Bears, is a turnover machine here, but he does run the ball well a little bit. He does hand the ball off, and these guys with John Fox and Trubisky maybe with the Bears are going to be able to keep the ball under control. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, they are predicated on defense, and I don't think Flacco is having such a great year this year. He rarely looks downfield. He's always dumping off, and basically they run the ball also. Total alert here, under is 8-3 the last 3 at home for the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to play the Chicago Bears here. Chicago Bears is not an offensive juggernaut. They lost to Minnesota. That game went under, and the Baltimore Ravens have certainly not put up a lot of points here. I think the best play here for the podcast and the best play that I'm going two-fist is I'm going to play under 40, under 39.5, Ravens, Chicago, play the under, and that's my NFL play.
This is another nice winner. I like this play as well. And I don't always love all your stuff. I know the listeners probably think that, but I don't always love – I love you, man, but I don't always love all your picks. And I'll tell you why, man. The Ravens – this is an unbelievable stat I found. They're 11-0 against rookie quarterbacks in the Harbaugh era. They've only allowed 3 touchdown passes in those 11 games against rookie quarterbacks. That screams that the Chicago Bears are just not going to score. Not to mention that they're 30 out of 32 in points per game, the Chicago Bears. So, unless Baltimore is going to put up 35 points or something, which I can't see, they're a little banged up on the O-line. I think that this game's probably going to go under. And it did drop. I saw it opened in Vegas at 41.5, down to 39.5 right now, maybe even go a little lower. But I think it's a pretty solid play, even going down to 39, 38.5 even.
Yeah, that's sharp money that moved that line. Obviously, when it goes at 41, 40.5, people jumped on that right away. And you're right. Baltimore has a great system of defense. Nobody's going to claim to fame for Baltimore on the offensive end. And I think this is going to be a ugly, unwatchable 10-7 at the half, 17-6 in the third quarter kind of ball game. I think Baltimore swarms these guys. Chicago does one thing right. They play some defense. Their offense is not very good, but they play some defense, and I think Chicago – now everybody's going to say, JR, the Packers put up 35-38 on them. I'm telling you, 7-0 out of the gate, the guy fumbles on the first play. Next play, he throws an interception. It's 14-0, and the Bears are looking at Aaron Rodgers, and basically if you look into that game, the Bears played well the second, third, and fourth quarter, but they gave the ball game away in the beginning, and people are not going to look at it. They're going to say the Packers put up 35, Chicago's going to get towards under. Now listen, nobody in the world likes to play the unders. The public plays the overs and the favorites. Everybody cringes when you give them an under. They love the overs. They love the favorites. But let me tell you, the unders and the underdogs are the way to fly, and I'm playing the under in this baby. It's going to be ugly, but the uglier the better.
Yeah, and the Ravens, they're also a little banged up on the O-line. They're down to like their third string guard, I believe, losing like a Pro Bowl type guy 2 weeks ago, Marshall Yanda. I think that this is a nice play. I think you're right. I think you're looking at scores like that, 17-6 in the third quarter, something like that. I think the Ravens will be lucky to put up 24. So, you're saying, are the Bears going to put up 14? I just can't see it. And you're probably right. The sharp money moved that line early. That's usually what happens. And the public loves to bet overs. It might even be a kind of thing that, whenever you're listening to this podcast, you sit on it and you wait and watch that line a little bit. May end up going back up to 40, which would be a really fat and a nice fat winner in the NFL for JRO. Taking under 39.5 in the Ravens-Bears game. Love it, man.
Yeah, let's see if we can bang it out there, my friend. Like I said, let's talk about Baltimore. Let's talk about Chicago a little bit. It is not going to be an offensive juggernaut. There's nobody going to put up 80, 90-yard passing plays. Flacco just does not throw the ball downfield, and the Chicago Bears are just going to run the ball and let their defense try to win the game.
Fantastic. So for those at home keeping score, JR is going to take the Air Force Falcons minus 7.5 against the UNLV Rebels in college football, and he's going to go under 39.5 in the Baltimore Ravens Chicago Bears matchup. Fantastic. 2 fat winners there for the listeners again this week. I want to spend just a minute talking about online sports books. I try to do every week to tell the public a little bit, the guys who are out there using these books, a little insight from, inside the OSGA. One of the things that we've been seeing recently is several sports books who, they'll get a complaint on a guy. I had one guy who said he sent 70 emails to try and correct his complaint before he contacted me. I think that what we're seeing is the customer service is starting to go, a little south at some of these places. They get a guy with a problem. They're just going to sit on him and hope he goes away. Players out there who have an issue, who have something going on, they need to understand they can contact us at any time. 70 emails is about 67 emails too many. If you get in that kind of situation, you're literally banging your head against the wall, and the best thing you can do at that point is reach out to osga.com, hit us on the chat, send us an email, fill out our complaint form, and we'll be happy to step in there and see what we can do. We've been having some very good success with getting some guys paid, some places that weren't paying a little earlier in the year now suddenly are starting to send some money out. So things are starting to turn around there. But, it's just frustrating for me sitting on this side of the desk trying to help players when a sportsbook just kind of sits on a complaint and really doesn't do much with it. So, folks, that's it for this week's podcast. JRO, you're going to load it up over there pregame. You're doing what, 2-3 plays a day, something like that?
Yeah, I usually do about 2 or 3 plays a day. Now, remember, I don't only do football. Basically, I'm killing it in hockey right now. I'm also waiting for the NBA and college basketball. But you're right, about 2 or 3 plays a day. Please, if you're looking for a guy that's got 8, 10, lots of actions, reverses, parlays, teasers, I'm not the guy. I do the flat betting. I'll give you 2, 3 solid plays, and that's how it flies.
Oh, that's right. We got an NBA starts next week, right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. We'll be checking you out over there on pregame. You can always find me, Jim Quinn, at osga.com. I want to thank everyone out there for listening to this week's episode of Cast Your Bets. And what JR and I are trying to do is help you cash in every week, cash in at the end of the season. Thanks very much for listening, and good luck out there.
You've been listening to Cast Your Bets, the Offshore Gaming Association podcast. Check in each week for more inside the sports gaming world. And don't forget to check us out on your favorite social media site and on our YouTube channel at OSGA Sports Betting. Thanks for listening.